the magic answer would be adoption or adoption efforts.
Yeah.
I tend to think and say to my clients or on stage or to competitors as well, if you need to spend a lot of time and money on adoption efforts, you're either implementing the wrong tool or the right tool in the wrong way. What I mean to say by that is if a new tool doesn't fit what I as an employee am trying to do, you could say you need to change the process, that answer is correct, of course. But if I can't see as an employee who's supposed to use the tool, the upside of using a new tool compared to what I was used to do, there's always a learning curve, of course. But if I don't see, this could help me. This could help me improve what I do, make it easier for myself. That is also something like friction.
Today, we'll be talking about digital employee experience and with a focus on the employees here, like not on the technology. For that, we have someone very special who will introduce himself soon. I'm Jabba's host, Senior Product Manager for Fresh Intranet. And with me, I have my colleague.
Hi, Dave Bowman, Product Director for Fresh Intranet.
There we go. And with us, we have Christiaan Lustig. Is that correct?
That's good enough. Yeah. In Dutch, it would be Lustig, but that's a bit difficult to pronounce for non-Dutch speakers. But and it's Christiaan with 2 A's, which is quite unique internationally, I suppose.
And we are matching as much as we can, Christiaan.
I didn't get the memo about the blue hoodie.
Glasses. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Like, I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Really nice. And Christiaan, I was taking a look at things that like your work, right? You were very active in the employee experience space. I see you at events that I also participating. Like we met recently in the Netherlands at the Internet Symposium. You are speaking there as well, and you have also written a book, right, about kind of digital employee experience. And why did you write this book?
Awesome question. Well, I stumbled upon the definition of digital employee experience sometime in 2018, and that was James Robertson's definition. And while I felt that, it's a good definition, but it's a bit flat, a bit dry. And from the work that I had done before and still do on Intranet and the digital workplace, I felt with my eventual co-author, Tabitha Minton, and we felt, there's more to it than just the definition that says DEX is it's the sum total of all digital interactions within a working environment. Well, sure, I agree, but there's a little bit more to it. So we ended up, and this is a spoiler for the book if you haven't read it, it's all the way at the back. Great digital employee experience is indeed the sum total of all digital interactions in a work environment, but where the needs and expectations of employees come first. So that aspect was something that we basically missed in the definition and in other definitions that have come up as well over the past few years. And that's we felt this is something that we can talk about based on our experience, on our ideas, the models and methodologies that we used in our day-to-day work. So both Tabitha and I, and we felt, this is something that's not yet around in the market as a blog post or a podcast, let alone a book. Mm-hmm. And there's something magical about books. Writing a physical book is cool, cool to do, cool to have, cool to give away. And so we felt let's write a book on this topic.
What was the nuance that you noticed that kind of that introduced this sort of addition to the definition of digital employee experience?
Tabitha and I, we strongly feel, and with our clients, we try to advocate for the employees in the whole world of digitalization, of DEX, of AI now, of course. What is the employee, the person's, the human's role in there? And so we felt, if you look at digital interaction, sure, that's about technology, software, hardware, about content, about management, but it's about me as an employee. It's about the other person at the end of the person at the other end of the screen, so to speak. So that's what we felt was a little bit missing there. And we thought, well, we have some experience in that regard, and let's share that and write hopefully a cohesive story about that.
For anyone listening that's unfamiliar with this term of digital employee experience, what's your definition? What is it that you would like people to understand about this topic?
That is it. It's not so much about the digital. Maybe it's not even about the experience, although both are part of the equation, of course. It's about the employee.
Yeah.
Businesses and organizations and governments, etc., they hire people to do a job. They pay them sometimes less money, sometimes some more. And what can you do to make that job easier with digital tools? Or if they have digital tools, how can you remove friction, lower thresholds, make things simpler? So it's mostly about the employee. And that's where Abid and I felt, so if you talk about digital interactions in a work environment, it should be about the employees first, about the person first.
And it sounds like the sort of thing that everybody should be doing automatically,
right?
But it often isn't. And I think it's this point about thinking with the lens of the employee is really important. This. Why is this important for organizations to be thinking about? And it makes complete sense why it's important for the employees. You say kind of removing friction, helping them to do their jobs. What is it that the organization is going to get out of this?
I think if you remove friction, if you make things easier for employees, oftentimes when you introduce new technology, it's about saving time. And if you save 5 or 10 minutes per employee per week, where does that time go? And in a part, you could say, well, that goes to improve productivity because you have 10 more minutes in the week to do your job. And people would then say, well, yeah, but they'll just grab another coffee. They'll chat to a colleague. They'll go home 10 minutes early. But that might not be a bad thing.
Yeah.
What if that's something that a person needs to still be healthy at the end of the week and have some extra time to contemplate, to think, to, empty your mind, which, well, we could talk about that in a different podcast, I suppose, but, be healthy, spiritually, psychologically, physically, etc. What if that's the time you save goes to that? That's not a bad thing. So it's not a business case, but it's not bad either. I would call that a good thing.
And I was having a conversation with somebody else about this over the weekend that, when we were in the office, often referred to as kind of, organizations talk about needing to be in the office to build culture, those kind of things. Pre-COVID, pre-pandemic, when I was in the office, I probably spent a lot more time chatting to people than I do when I'm at home. Now, today that time might not be seen as being productive or whatever, but when I was in the office, that was a way of building relationships with people. It was a way of me kind of participating in the development of the organizational culture. Do you include those things in your definition?
Well, not explicitly, but it's in there somewhere. Yeah. So if you look at experience, if you translate that to Dutch or German or Spanish or Japanese or other languages, there are two sides, two translations. One would be a little bit more subjective, personal, a felt experience. What does this do to me as a person? And at the other end of the spectrum is something a little bit more objective, measurable, observable. So it's the softer and the harder side of the word experience. My natural tendency is to move to the tangible and concrete a little bit more than to the softer and personal experience in that regard. But it is part of the equation. There are two sides to the same coin, so to speak. And if you work on improving people's experience, people's digital experience, you will have to work and you'll automatically basically work on both aspects. So if you improve like a process that has 7 steps, you take out 2 steps to improve the experience, that is something tangible, measurable, and you'll see the outcomes of that. But that you take out something that that needed some effort for someone to put into that. That is something that, my work has become, even if it's a tiny bit, it's become a little bit easier. But that does something to me. And if I was the one who pointed out, nobody needs the 2 steps, that is something that, this gives us some breathing room, That's the softer personal, subjective side to the equation, I think.
Do organizations try to improve the digital employee experience actively? So is that something that they go after actively, or is that something that happens based on the need?
Yes and no, I think. When we wrote the book in 2021, one of the comments we got on the manuscript was, where are the examples, the practical examples? And we didn't have any. We had one client at the time, and we still do, that was actively looking to broaden their scope from just the intranet to the digital workplace as a whole, to the digital employee experience as a more abstract way of looking at the challenges. And so we didn't have, and still don't have, very many practical examples. However, I do see, I was kind of surprised by that, by the way, that IT businesses, so the large IT businesses and hardware providers, are starting to use the term digital employee experience as a broadening of IT service management in a sense. Gartner has introduced their DEX tools quadrant. So there is some work being done on at least acknowledging that there is something like DEX, that you already have a digital experience. It might be terrible or it might be reasonable, but there's something to work from. I feel that organizations are working on it. Maybe they're not calling it DEX. Maybe they're calling it by different names, which is perfectly fine. But the idea that there is something like an overarching concept that is not as HR particular like employee experience is, and EX is so broad that it might be difficult to determine what are we working on. And DEX is a bit, it's a little smaller. It's still a large thing, of course, but it's a little smaller, a little bit more towards the digital tools, of course, hardware, software, content management, etc. So it's a bit more tangible. And I think that, so yes, businesses are working on that. Whether that's by definition DEX related, if they see it as DEX related, I'm not sure, and I don't really care either.
Yeah.
Well, tools like
I was going to say the naming of things has become a challenge, I think, for this sector particularly.
Yeah.
Things like labels like intranet, digital workplace, digital employee experience, often used interchangeably to describe components of all the thing in its entirety as well.
Yeah.
I think I like the way that you sort of said that the name doesn't matter. It's the sort of feeling that, or the objective we're trying to pursue, that's the important thing there.
Yeah.
Do you recognize that confusion yourself as a kind of as a practice?
Yeah. Absolutely. And although I don't really care what people call things, it is important, at least in your project team or your business, to have a shared vocabulary. Yeah. What do we mean when we say intranet? What do we mean when we say digital workplace? For instance, does that include all shadow IT or not?
Yeah.
Well, maybe yes, maybe no. But as long as you have a shared definition with the people that you're working with on whatever you're working on.
I think that right now, like we hear like the words like digital employee experience or employee experience everywhere. And Microsoft was pushing that was like very heavily when they introduced Microsoft Viva, kind of improving your employee experience. So it's kind of from a market point of view. So it's something that people are using maybe more than they should.
So we're going to keep. This is an exciting topic for all of us. I've also completely forgotten what I was about. So I've distracted myself by talking over you, Albert. So if you can remember what you were going to ask, you should go ahead now.
No, like, because we are talking about tools, and like within our context, Intranet plays an important role, and for our clients as well. So, and how do you see the role of an intranet in the context of the digital employee experience?
Well, I don't need to tell you that Intranet has been dead for at least 35 years. It's been in existence for 36, I suppose, but let's call things by their name. So if we meet Intranet and we have a shared understanding of what that is, that's great. I love intranets. I do most of my work at least related in some part to Intranet, even if it's digital workplace or DEX-based. There's always some sort of role for Intranet in those projects. And I think that if you look at the digital workplace as a concept, you can't buy a digital workplace. Microsoft 365 is not a digital workplace. It could be your digital workplace, but more often than not, there are 60 or 600 or 1,000 applications within any given organization, that at least the ones that they officially support. And then there's the shadow IT. And in my view, I always share with my clients, there must be at least 100 to 200 non-official applications used. Trello, Google Drive, what's it called? Canva, and whatnot. Most officially supported applications in an organization are silo-based. It's HR, it's finance, it's facilities, it's comms, and so on. So those are what I tend to call vertical applications. They're anywhere in the verticals or the silos in the organization. And there are not that many tools that you can call horizontal platforms, horizontal software that function like a bridge to actually bridge those gaps between the silos, other than the Intranet. That can be. It's not always the case. Sometimes, or often, it's just one of the silos, one of the vertical platforms. But it has it can be, in potential, be something of a horizontal platform that bridges the gaps between the vertical platforms and bridges the gaps between the silos that manage the vertical tools as well. So it can help build bridges between people who are working towards similar goals, helping their employees, improving the digital employee experience, but not having command over all the other tools, which they will not have and maybe should not have, but there is at least an opportunity to collaborate on it. And so that's where I think what we traditionally call the Intranet has a very important position.
I think like the Internet helps, it becomes a gateway to like the different tools that we have, like the digital workplace, as you said, like that's a role that the Internet has here.
Absolutely, but maybe not a gateway to all the tools, or not a gateway to all the tools for all employees. One example might be someone in finance. They don't go to the Intranet to go to the finance environment that they use on a day-to-day basis. They go through the back door in a way. But if at the very least, if you're not sure where to find stuff, go to the Intranet and find it. If you reach that level, that will be a great threshold to get to in any organization, I guess. But if you know the way to the tool or to the information or to the document, go there through the back door, through search, whatever. If you know the direct access.
Yeah, the quickest route that you are aware of to get to the answer that you need is the obvious route that lots of employees will want to take.
Yeah.
And, the better organized the content is behind the scenes, the easier it is that people are going to find more direct routes.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So does digital employee experience have a sort of organization size boundary? Are there, is it applicable, appropriate for very small organizations? Is it much harder to do in enterprise global businesses? Do you think there's a limiter in there?
If your definition is that you already have a digital workplace, if it's Outlook and Word that you have, that's your digital workplace, right? So with those two tools, you have a digital employee experience, plus likely WhatsApp and Signal and all those applications that you also use for work, at least in some capacity. In really small businesses like 10, 20, 25 people, I think actually focusing on the digital employee experience from a concept perspective, that might be overreaching a little bit. You have your colleagues close by, either physically or digitally. You have a relatively small set of applications that you use. This is making assumptions, right? And the larger an organization gets, the more tools you have, the more tools are bought as a solution to part problems, so smaller problems. And that's the way you end up with hundreds or thousands of applications. So the larger the organization, the more tools you have, the wider your digital workplace gets, the more that the idea of DEX can help you control that sprawl. If that makes sense.
It does, yeah. Is there, for anyone sort of considering pursuing digital employee experience, I really like that idea that the definition of it is flexible and should be representative of the context that you exist in, right? As you say, it's Word and Outlook that is your digital employee experience.
Yeah.
Well, recognize it, embrace it. Don't force something unnatural in there as well to give it something that of a sort of, like fake level of tangibility, I guess. Is there something that organizations should do to sort of formally recognize their digital employee experience? Is there a step that they can take that kind of put something meaningful in place?
So first of all, if organizations recognize that there is such a thing as digital employee experience and that they already have a DEX, that is the most important step. If that's not in your vocabulary as an organization, you can do all things that you want to do, improve stuff, improve tools. That's great. But if it's not a coherent concept for you, so that's the first hurdle that you would have to take. And then I think it's important to recognize that no single silo, no single entity in the organization will automatically fix all the DEX issues that you might encounter. So DEX is not an IT concept. It's not an IT problem to fix. They're crucial to much of it, but neither is it facilities only or comms only. So it should be a shared, you're working towards shared goals, helping your, I tend to say the people who do the real work, whether they're nurses or teachers or people in government agencies helping inhabitants and business owners with all the things that they need to do their best work. If you have a view of, I want to make work as easy for those people as possible, you would have to be a really strange organization to not share that idea from the more service-based departments, like I mentioned, IT, facilities, comms, and often facilities, comms, IT, HR, of course. They have a shared goal, or should have a shared goal, and they could have a shared mission to collaborate on the 10 or 20 or 30 applications that they offer to those people to make them, all those applications, better as a whole, or with something like a horizontal platform on top of all of them.
Yeah. Many years ago, I was kind of making the transition out of being a developer into something else. I'm not even sure what I would describe in that transition. I was working with a customer, and they introduced me to this idea of servant leadership. And that I don't know if they would have referred to it as digital employee experience, but what they had people in their organization that were just 100% absolute focus on how they made their frontline employees more efficient, and that the organization at the top, or the bottom, depending on which way you're in the pyramid, weren't introducing things that were making those people's lives harder, more difficult, systems that weren't understood, didn't have a clear purpose. And, I think a lot of the time it seemed like kind of quite heavyweight governance was being introduced to slow things down. But, that slowing things down actually made the bit of their business that needed to work really well extremely efficient.
Yeah, I think it was only this morning that I saw it. It's a very well-known quote. I don't know by whom. So things are perfect when there's not nothing much and nothing more to add. No. When there's nothing more to take away.
Yeah.
And I think that matches the idea of if you can no longer take away things from the digital employee experience in order for people to do their best work, then that's the end of the line. You're done. So that was the end boss. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
No, I have like something I would like to ask you, especially like because you are involved in so many like internet projects, from as far as I know, and like considering your context here. So how do you see like the role of integrations, like in this context, as you mentioned, like, digital workplace has so many tools, but people like might not necessarily kind of, they might just go to the tools directly, but like, how do you see integrating these tools, maybe like in the intranet? Does that improve the collaboration, maybe engagement of employees?
Yeah, like a consultant would say, it depends. And what I try to do is, really find out qualitatively and quantitatively what do people need to do their best work. And from that insight comes, a need to either integrate with a certain tool or not, or integrate with part of a tool or not, or integrate with certain data within a tool or not. The most basic of examples are, how many days of leave can I still use this year? Well, this year is a little bit short, but we're recording this midway through December. If you're listening to this or viewing this in early January, you will have more days, of course. But how many days are those? And where do I find that number? What if I can have that number on the home screen, home page of my intranet? Or something like, I need to book a meeting room in an office that I'm not familiar with 25 people, and I want to have lunch. How does that work? That is probably done in 2 or 3 systems: booking the meeting room, booking lunch, inviting guests into the office. Can I integrate with those 2 or 3 people from the employee's process instead of from the service departments offering the service? Or if I'm new to a job, I need to get my the badge to get into the office from the reception desk, maybe, or facilities. I get my laptop from IT. I get perhaps my work clothes or shoes or whatever I need to wear for work from someone else altogether. That is one process to me, while it might be 3 or 4 to the organization. So if you want to integrate stuff, do it based on the employee's experience, on the employee journey. Yeah. And that is something that's often used interchangeably. And again, I don't have too much of a problem with that, but you can use the idea of employee journeys in working on decks.
Is
that an answer to your question, or is this something entirely?
It is, like, I think you need like to consider like the real scenarios that people have, like, so and keep like the people in mind.
Yeah,
isn't there, like their needs?
Yeah, absolutely. And I tend to go back to the idea of creating personas for certain groups of employees. It's a little bit of an old school method, I think, but it still works to make the data that you have, not just the data, but make it like a person, make it tangible, concrete, make it likable even. So this is an archetype of a colleague that I could know from real life.
And great segue into the next question as well, because in the process of implementing, building, improving digital employee experience, and just as it goes these days, right? New technology turns up all the time. We're in the middle of a introduction of many AI tools hitting the market with existing products with lots of new features turning up in them as well. What are some of the best ways for handling resistance to new digital tools, changes in the digital employee experience?
The magic answer would be adoption or adoption efforts. Yeah. And I tend to think and say to my clients, or on stage, or to competitors as well, if you need to spend a lot of time and money on, adoption efforts, you're either implementing the wrong tool or the right tool in the wrong way. And I think what I mean to say by that is, if a new tool doesn't fit what I as an employee am trying to do, you could say you need to change process, that answer is correct, of course. But if I can't see as an employee who's supposed to use the tool, the upside of using a new tool compared to what I was used to do, there's always a learning curve, of course. But if I don't see, this could help me. This could help me improve what I do, make it easier for myself. That is also something like friction. So what was the question again?
Handling resistance from employees.
Yeah.
It struck me while you were talking about the personas that, in kind of traditional marketing terms, if you want to access a new audience, right, you build some personas and come up with some messaging and understand the problems that you're trying to solve. That there is there's a whole world of tackling this challenge out there that, I feel organizations don't necessarily consider. Do you agree, disagree on that?
Yeah. Maybe circling back to what we started with, if you have 100 employees, you have a big payroll, you pay these people to do a job, and then you give them tools that don't help them do their job. Now, if that's the case, you can do all the adoption you want. It's going to backfire eventually, because people will find other ways to do the things that they need to do with the tools that you're not providing them. So if you're not looking at the actual person doing the actual work with your actual client, all else is in the end, basically useless. And understand me correctly, a lot of work that I do for my clients does not go all those steps towards, observing, measuring the actual work with the client. But the least you can do is talk to the people. And that's where I start almost all my projects. Talk to the nurses, talk to some teachers, talk to other peoples on the shop floor or whatever it is, and find out what they do. Most people like talking about their work in some form or another. They're happy to share some insights, share some frustrations as well.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, determine, wait a minute, with the new tool that we're thinking of, we could tackle this or that problem.
Yeah,
that's what we're going to focus on for this particular group of colleagues.
And that doesn't need to be like a great big scary months-long exercise, right? Kind of 10, 15-minute conversations with a few key people.
Absolutely. And the challenge in the marketplace of digital tools is, I think we have so much standardization in the tools that it's becoming difficult to fine-tune the tools for that particular use case in that particular person's world. And then you have the problem of you need to do a lot of adoption and training and support for that person to understand how they need and why they need to use that tool in this particular way, because the match is not as natural as you want. And that is a challenge in having a whole plethora of standardized tools with only a few buttons to work on. And I don't know what the solution is. You cannot design and build a custom platform for everything. That's nonsense. But is there something in the middle? Might that be something that we call intranet? That we do have some tools, some regulators for, or that we have some impact on, UX wise. Sometimes I find that wonderfully interesting as well.
So kind of going back to the employees, do you think that organizations are listening to the needs of employees enough?
I certainly hope so. But in practice, yes and no. And this is in all my projects, this is a challenge. So yes, whenever I talk to new clients, they want to understand what people need. Oftentimes, they don't know what question to ask. They tend to ask employees, what do you want? Well, people don't know what they want. And if they do know related to your project or your tool, it's all of the basics that we can come up with in 45 minutes as well. But you can find out what they're doing. Like I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, what do you do? What are your challenges? What goes right? What goes wrong? And how can I help you improve what's basically below a level that you want. So that's one aspect. But there is always the concept of what are we trying to achieve as a business, as an organization? And those things might not, more often than not, they don't always align. So they align on some topics, which is great. That's the low-hanging fruit that you can start on. But there's always things that, your employees are asking for something that you're not going to give them because you can't, you won't, it's too expensive or whatever. And there's always things that, this is important to us as an organization for our future development. And employees don't find that too important yet. So that's where you need to do some comms effort or internal marketing or adoption-wise. There's always room for that as well, of course. So you need to find out how do you match those concepts.
Let's talk about a topic that all vendors want to talk about at the moment. We are addicted to talking about AI, and in the Microsoft sphere, tools like Copilot. Clearly there is a sort of huge impact to digital employee, or huge potential impact, I should say, to digital experience. And I think us, I'm sort of half admitting this as a vendor myself, of kind of creating solutions and then going around looking for problems in this area. I'm trying not to be too reflective in the context of this conversation.
People are listening,
Do you agree that there are implications of AI here? What kind of responses are you seeing in the conversations that you're having?
I like to throw the cat among the pigeons every once in a while. And I like to state that artificial intelligence is neither artificial nor intelligent. And that might be a topic for a different podcast. But what I do find interesting is I think all three of us are old enough to know the DOS prompt, right? C:/, entering commands manually. So that was one of the ways of interfacing with a digital tool. I'm not sure how old we are, but soon after or longer after, there was the point and click. So the mouse and the graphical user interface. And on our smartphones and tablets, that is also point and click. So that's a different way of interacting with the digital tool. And I feel that at the very least, AI is becoming a different paradigm in interacting with a digital tool, not by entering commands, not by pointing and clicking, but by conversation. And that is interesting. Is it the best solution for everything? I don't think so. No, point and click in many situations may be the quickest. So I suspect that, yes, AI is going to do a lot of stuff, good and bad. But in the digital employee experience context, maybe it's in the near future or further along the line, it will be at the very least one of the ways that a horizontal platform might work. It has some point and click, some enterprise search, and some AI. What the balance between those three will be, we'll have to find out, and maybe it's different from one organization to the other. So that's the I don't like the word, but the user's perspective. As a content creator or a platform manager or an intranet manager or whatever you are, the tools will, of course, help you create better content, which is great.
Yes,
I think those two aspects are what I see with my clients at this time.
Yeah, I think we're, as humans, we're visual people, right? And I think a lot of what we, I don't know that my Amazon or other web browsing experiences would be improved by reducing it down to a single text box. So I think there will always be an element of visual user interface.
Absolutely. And what it will also do, if you implement whichever AI tool you have on your internal digital workplace data set, at least it will show what awful crap you're saving. Because it will put that on the screen. So that's a challenge that we encounter. So because I think it was 10 or 12 years ago that clients would say, well, just give me a Google search bar.
Yeah.
And that laid bare the challenges of good content management as well. I've never seen a good implementation of just a search bar, because it's not just the search bar isn't the best option for everything.
Yeah.
And I suspect that AI will also expose what we have, what we've been saving, all the documents, thousands, hundreds of thousands of them, all the pages that no one has touched for 5 or 6 or 7 years. They're still there. AI will find them, and it'll share an answer based on obsolete data. That will happen in any organization working with AI, except if you really point. So this is our HR document or the HR library. This is all you can do.
Yeah,
of course. But then you'll have an HR, an IT, a facilities, a siloed, a vertical AI.
Yeah.
And I would suspect and hope that AI will be a horizontal thing in the digital workplace, just like Intranet is, or enterprise search is, in a sense.
So it's kind of like all this like that you said here. So the longer you have been at an organization, the more access you have. So the worse it gets. Like if there is no
Yes,
yeah, it has been like designed properly. But I think going back to what you mentioned previously, right? It's about, I think here this applies again. So it's about listening to the needs and the requirements that people have when introducing AI. It's just like it's another instrument, like tool that we have now that we can use. And I think kind of going to the employees, talking to them, talking about the requirements, and not just kind of enabling AI for the sake of, hey, we are an AI ready company. That's the challenge, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
How do you like going kind of towards kind of looking at into the future, and where do you see digital employee experience going in the next 2 years, maybe 5 years? Kind of going to
when we wrote the book, so back in 2021, we felt that we, in working on DEX, using DEX as a concept, we were a little bit ahead of the curve. So James Robertson was really ahead of the curve by 3 years still. And only in the last, I think in 2025, I've seen the concept of DEX gaining traction. Again, to my surprise, first of all, by HP, Ivanti, Nextthink, the vendors of DEX tools, or I don't think I'm doing them justice, but ITSM-like tools.
Yep.
Which is great, because if that's their vision, their vision is broadening from just IT to a broader vision on the employee experience. That's great. So I hope that those DEX tools that Gartner is now having in their quadrant I hope that they will eventually become like hygiene factors. You need to have this basic data. And then you have, on top of that, various forms of questions that you ask your employees every quarter, every week, maybe not on a daily basis. That sounds like a bit too much, but have regular updates from certain groups of colleagues about the more qualitative aspect of their day-to-day use of digital tools. And those things together should develop into, well, maybe it's not something that I've shared in a lot of places yet, so it's really in the back of my mind. Could there be a DEX indicator, like from 0 to 100? And how would you define at what level you are? Is that something that might grow in the next few years? Maybe. I think that slowly but surely organizations are realizing that if we want to service our employees better, we cannot do that by shoving tools down their throat, including AI, or just having a large set of documents. You can find the answer to your HR question here, or whatever other means you have at this time. You need to collaborate with those servicing departments in your organization to best service your employees, and they can in turn service their clients. And there is, I think it was last week, also on LinkedIn, the phrase DexOps, coined by Forrester. And that's interesting, because that's basically what Peter and I in our book call an association of owners of the digital employee experience. That should likely include IT and comms and HR and facilities, your business people, management, and maybe some more as well. Legal, for instance, or whatever you have as a requirement. And if they work from the same premises, and is that the right word? Not premises as in a locale, but from the same foundation towards the same goal. That's effectively what DexOps would be. So that is interesting. If Forrester is moving in that direction, if Gartner is moving on the Dex tools in the Dex tools area, vendors are moving towards we're trying to add or take away from the digital employee experience in order to improve it. That is, it's starting to stir in that regard. So I hope that next year there will be developments in that regard as well.
Yeah, it's super interesting, isn't it? Kind of turning it into a sort of formalized process. Sort of target operating model for digital employee experience is a kind of nice. And even better, being driven by IT, right? I mean, it makes a lot of sense that it would begin there and end up everywhere.
Sure. Yeah.
If you were giving a piece of advice to an organization that wants to improve their digital employee experience, increase their score on this forthcoming rating, and doesn't kind of recognizes that they need to make some improvements. Maybe they don't have anything that they would formally see as being digital employee experience in place at the moment. What advice, guidance would you give?
The first thing that I say to people whenever they're thinking about improving Dex or improving the digital workplace is just talk to people. Take those 15 minutes, talk to 10 or 12 people on the shop floor, and just try to get a bit of a feel for what they're doing. What is going right and what is going wrong, and just grasping what that means to them. Because most people are trying to do a good job. Yeah. And if there's things in the way to do a good job, maybe you can take those barriers away, or you can improve the tools that they need to use, because that's just the tool. Most of it comes from talking to people. And the second step that I often take is, how can I quantify those qualitative insights? And can I use methods like task identification, like personas, like to make that quantified and tangible and personable, maybe even. So that is that would be a first step.
Nice. Christiaan, we have a tradition where we ask our guests what their favorite app is, and what would that be for you?
That is a difficult question. I have a few, and I would like to point out these two. I was a big fan of Google Reader. Remember that? Yeah. So when that stopped, I tried to find an alternative, and that appeared to be Feedly. So I have maybe not hundreds, but at least a couple of dozen feeds that I follow on all sorts of work-related, family-related, sports-related. I have that in Feedly. I use that daily, multiple times a day, I guess. But I don't have time to read it all, at least not at the time when I'm looking at the screen. Oh, this is interesting. So I save it to Instapaper. And Pocket was more well-known, but Instapaper was there first, I guess. And I bought my first iPad in 2010 when I was on holiday in Florida. And I think the first app that I downloaded, or one of the first, at least the first that I paid for, was Instapaper. So I've been using it for 15 years and I still love it.
Well, I'm a big fan of Feedly myself, so it's nice to find another fan.
Good, yeah.
And Christiaan, if people want to get in touch after listening to the podcast today, what's the best place for people to connect with you on?
On the interwebs? No, go and find me on LinkedIn or on Google or DuckDuckGo or whatever tool you're using. I suppose I'm in ChatGPT, but I'm not sure. I haven't tested, actually. But the good thing is, if you go find Christiaan Lustig with 2 A's, there's nobody in the world with the same name. So you're bound to end up with me.
Unique. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. Great.